Hello students, Miss Lockhart here. Now that you've finished coloring in the color value stripes, you can decide if you would like to add any flowers or details and a background. Now, I am using an oil pastel. You can also use a crayon if you're going to try what I'm going to try because you have extra time this week. You can use oil pastels and draw any kind of flower design you would like. It doesn't even have to be flowers. You can think outside the vase and maybe add art supplies or, I don't know, anything you want. Peacock feathers, who knows? Okay, so if you want to use watercolor paint after this, make sure you are using oil pastels or crayons so that you can have an oil resist, which means the watercolor paint won't be able to saturate or go over the color you're using if it's oil pastel. So it's kind of cool. So my outline here is going to keep the paint from coming inside my flower. So it's a nice little wall. And the oil pastel does work well. It works better than the crayon. The crayon is waxy enough to keep the watercolor out pretty well, but sometimes it does kind of come in a little bit, but that's okay. You can color this however you want. You don't even have to be using oil pastels or crayons. Maybe you are still using your colored pencils and you're happy with that. That is fine. The flowers and the background are optional. I mostly just wanted you to learn about color value and how to create a vase and make it look three-dimensional using color value, tints, and shades. This is the fun part, and when you finish early. Or you can always come back to this another time if you ever have some spare time and you want to fill it in then. So you'll see I'm still using oil pastels. It's quite thick. I have to press down kind of hard a little bit to make sure it's solid, and I want to cover up as much of the paper as I can. And I'm going to add some yellow. Look how I'm blending these oil pastels. It's a fun little challenge. So I'm putting yellow on top of the red now, and you can see it's creating like a nice reddish orange. And you can use any colors or materials you want once you've finished your vase. I do recommend at least filling in your shadow down at the bottom. You'll see me do that later on, but if you are not going to add any flowers or painting in the background, that's fine. Just do your shadow below. Okay, you see me blending these colors some more with oil pastels? Now I'm going to use, let's see, yellow just here for the very tips of the petals, and I'm going to overlap that yellow with the ochre color, which is kind of like that darker yellow. I'm going to overlap it a little bit so that you can see it blend. I love blending colors with oil pastels. It's almost like mixing paint in a way, because you can see new colors created from two different colors. It's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to finish up coloring in these flowers with my oil pastels, overlapping them a little, and I'm going to try to fill in all of the white paper so that my watercolor paint doesn't get inside the flower. Okay, I'm gonna add a few more details, some dark green next to my stems to give them more dimension, make them look more 3D. It's kind of like adding a shade to that green, a dark shade. Okay, and I'm gonna fill in anywhere else in the flowers I need, so I don't want any white paper showing if I can help it. And I'm gonna go ahead and make sure it's ready because I am gonna add watercolor paint. As I mentioned before, you do not need to be using oil pastels and watercolor paint if you don't have any at home. You can be using anything you want, color pencils, markers, whatever you have. Crayons are great too. Okay, do you see how I just kind of outlined it a little bit and filled in any leftover white space inside those flowers? And I'm gonna do my shadow. So even if you decide not to add a background or any flowers, do your shadow. Notice how I'm doing a dark to light gradient, just like how we did on our vase's stripes. Now I have decided that I'm going to use black because I like the contrast. It's dark and the rest of my drawing looks really nice and bright with that dark contrasted background. So I just love using watercolor, and I'm gonna go, in real life, I'm going quite slow. Now it is sped up some, but you should take your time. If you are putting watercolor paint down, make sure you go slow and don't use too much water because you don't want your paper to get too wrinkly or to get holes in it. So grab a lot of the color by rotating your brush inside the little color spot that you want. Rotate it into a circle multiple times until your brush is full of that color. And make sure your brush is not dripping with water, because when your brush is dripping with water, it's a little too wet for this project. Okay, so I just filled in my background with black, and I'm going around my sun up there. Or maybe it's a moon, a yellow moon, I don't know. Maybe I could color it blue so it looks more like a moon. But I like it. Okay. Now we have the background pretty much done, and you can see I went around the flowers, and notice how I didn't get any black paint inside the flowers. It was a little hard. I had to go slow and use the tip of my brush and the side of my brush to get angles that were a little bit tight and small. And here we have it. Please don't forget to submit your finished drawing to me within Schoology. All right, can't wait to see what you've made. Bye, everyone.